Well, 911, what is your emergency?
There's somebody screaming saying that they're shot.
Oh, God.
He's right here.
Where is he shot at?
He shot in his face. He shot in the head. He shot in his chest, too.
We're sending multiple units.
I'm back here, officer! Come here! I'm here! Come to me, okay? Come on, the folks is here for you. They're going to take you to the hospital, okay?
As EMTs rush the man to the hospital, officers secure the area.
There's another person.
And find a second victim in the front parking lot, shot dead. For those most affected by a homicide, the first 48 is just the beginning.
He's laying on his chest like he was asleep. I guess when I saw the yellow table, I already knew.
I found myself bawling in the corner and crying on the floor in disbelief.
This is the story of the fight for justice.
We've got a hostile witness willing to change their story for the defendant.
I don't want to hold you in contempt of court, but I will.
In the weeks, months, and years.
I don't know if we're going to be able to prove this case.
Born and raised here in Gwinnett, something just steered me towards policing, and I kind of rolled with it.
At the time of this case, I had been in homicide for 30 days. When you add on that it was my very first homicide case, it's very overwhelming.
One of the most motivating factors for me is the victim's family. I don't want to let them down.
The incident location was actually in the far back right. I noticed that there was crime scene tape that was blocking off large portions of the apartment complex. There was a large line of residents of that building and then nearby buildings coming to see what's going on.
It was a massive scene. Sirens everywhere, medical units there, fire department there. It definitely overwhelmed, even for experienced detectives. But you have to stay focused.
Right now we have two people that are shot. One is deceased. One is in critical condition right now. Male with gunshot wounds. He was found along the fence line of the property, right on the other side of the complex here.
17-year-old Jamar Quarles was rushed into surgery after being shot in the face and chest.
We don't know if he's going to make it or not.
In the area that Jamar was located at, we found his clothing, some shoes, and then a ski mask.
That's the deceased?
Yeah. Capri is his name.
29-year-old Capri Ward attended Wheeler High School in Cobb County and was an assistant manager at a local pizzeria. Capri lived with his mother, stepfather, and two step-siblings in an apartment of the complex.
Got shot in basically like the middle chest.
It's somebody's car.
Just 10 yards from Capri's body.
At the scene was a dark-colored sedan backed into a parking spot just in front of the building. Blood on the interior door. And there's a nice big blood stain on the seat.
First responders found two cell phones inside of the car.
Keys were left in the car.
At this point, we don't know who the killer is, but we know this car played a role in it. This was our first really big lead in the case.
What was told to us, there was at least two, possibly three other males.
A witness saw individuals scale the fence where Jamar Quarles was found and then flee the scene.
There's shell casings and everything up there.
We found one firearm at the base of the stairway of Capri's building.
Rounds on the stairs coming up.
There are two 9mm shell casings on the stairs.
There's quite a few shell casings up here.
And 16 more on the landing outside of Capri's apartment.
They're all 9mm, but they're all different brands. We observed what appeared to be a firearm attachment that emits a visible laser that helps with aiming.
With defects all over the place.
door right there?
Yeah, there was a gun by the dude.
We had projectiles going into one corner of the breezeway and further down on the other side. The angle in which the projectiles were actually going into the walls showed me that two individuals, at minimum, were on that stairwell shooting at each other.
It could have been the victim that was sent to the hospital was the one that shot the decedent and vice versa. Now, why they did it, we still don't know.
We got to go interview the victim's family right now. Are you Mr. Ward's father?
Stepfather. Yeah.
Stepfather? Okay.
My children came in. My daughter was crying. They said Capri was on the ground. I ran downstairs. I saw him on the ground, and Capri was laying on his chest like he was asleep. So I wanted to pick him up so bad. I guess when I saw the yellow tape, I already knew, but I was fighting it.
Does he normally take his pistol with him wherever he goes?
Yeah. As far as what I know, yeah. And really, he wasn't supposed to be carrying it at all. He just came home from prison in January.
Capri served time for misdemeanors and was released just 6 months ago.
He sell weed.
You said that he does sell dope?
Yeah, he sell weed. But he ain't had no problem.
Learning that Capri sold weed gave us an idea as to why maybe this happened to him.
Right off the top of our head, probably a drug deal gone bad.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, mind if we step in just for a second?
Daniel and Dorminey speak with Capri's mother.
Where was he today?
He came home from work like he always does. He took a shower, got dressed. He walked out of here. It had to be sometime after 6.
Okay, so he left at 6 and he was going where?
I don't know. I never asked him. He was no angel, but he's been doing really good. He got his driver's license. He just bought a car.
Sure.
He has a job, manager's job at the pizza.
Sure.
All this stuff is going on around me. All these people are in my house, like detectives. They asked me a bunch of questions. And that's when I looked over to the gentleman and I asked, is my son gone? And he looked at me and he was like, yeah. And I was like, okay. I believe it was shock.
I'm gonna miss my son.
Oh, I'm sorry.
After that initial reaction, I kind of fell apart. I found myself bawling in the corner and crying on the floor in disbelief.
5 hours into the investigation,
So what's the update on the victim at the hospital?
Jamar Quarles is out of surgery.
Doctor said he's pretty critical. He got shot in his right cheek, and it got stuck right here. And then got shot in basically like the middle chest, and it hit his liver and collapsed his right lung. I talked to Mom. She says they didn't know he was down here in Atlanta.
Detective Casey spoke with Jamar Quarles' mom, who informed him that she was in Memphis, where she and Jamar lived. But after hearing of her son's injury, she would be headed down to Gwinnett County.
I think our next step is go figure out why this car's here with blood in it.
Detective Carter and I, we stayed there well into the late morning hours as light was coming up. We were going to impound this vehicle and send it to the Gwinnett County Police Department. And then that's when the case took another turn.
Hey, this is Detective Carter.
A call comes in from dispatch.
I'm sorry. My phone went out for a second. What did you say?
I said, can you check and see if my keys are in the car?
The car's not here anymore, but I can find out for you. You were driving, though?
Yeah, I drove. Yeah.
Okay.
I can't believe this guy's calling. This is like a gift from God. We're not calling them. He's calling us.
We should be over there in a bit.
Okay.
Aaron Todd. He's not the owner of the car, but he drives the car that was impounded and had all the blood in it. So we got to go get his side of the story.
Now we have an individual that has identified himself and put himself at the scene. That's a big piece to this giant unsolved puzzle.
You're thinking, is this guy going to say, you know what, maybe this wasn't a good idea? And before we can put it in park and get out of the car, he's gone.
This is a magnet that Capri had placed on the refrigerator. I believe Capri wrote this to stay focused. This is beautiful. This is gonna stay with me till the day I die. Capri came home from jail January 2021. While he was away, he wrote letters. He made a list of all the things that he wanted to pursue when he came home. He was determined to fulfill that list. That very first week he came home, I'll never forget. He said, "Ma, I need to look for a job." I swear to you, he got the job that same day. That's him with his car. He bought this car with his own money. We were so proud of him. No matter what it was that he was ever going to pursue in life, he was going to be very good at it, and he would be the leader at it. He just had that spirit about him. Only had 6 months to spend with him, and I'm thankful for those 6 months. As I watched my son become the man that I wanted him to be. And I'm thankful for that.
Six hours into the investigation, Carter and Dorminey head over to meet the driver of the car found at the crime scene.
Me and Detective Carter and drove to where he wanted to meet us. It turned out that he was staying at a friend's house.
That's gonna be him. Aaron?
So, like, what in the world is going on?
You tell us.
I had went to Memphis last night. Memphis, Tennessee. My whole place was.
What's his name?
Wu.
He told them that he had picked up an individual named Wu and dropped him off at a park and hadn't seen Wu since then.
You got Wu's number?
His phone number? There we go. That's his number right there.
That's Wu's number? Like being Zaza?
Carter finds another contact in his phone.
Detective Carter noticed there was some previous text message and phone calls with a individual saved in the phone as Plug Bean Zaza. The word plug in and of itself tells us that that is likely going to be a marijuana or drug dealer.
Do you buy from anybody in there?
I used to buy from the club when I lived.
Zaza? So basically there was a shootout last night. The reason your car was closed, there's blood all in your car.
What?
Yeah.
He jumped back. He was aghast. His mouth opened up. What?
Who put the blood in the car?
I don't know who put the blood in my car. I wasn't there last night.
He was not shocked at the homicide, but shocked that there's blood in the car.
I don't know what exactly happened last night, but I do know that
So they're going to go collect DNA and all that other stuff. As soon as it's done, I'll give you a call.
We have an individual who has admitted to bringing somebody named Wu back from Memphis with him. Now, whether Wu was Jamar Quarles or another individual, we weren't sure, but we now have a connection with Memphis.
"11 hours into the investigation.
Again, thank you for coming up here. I know you're going through a lot.
Detective Randy Blackburn interviews the mother of the surviving victim, Jamar Quarles, and she has just arrived from Memphis.
So right now, your son can't talk to us and tell us what happened, so that's why we brought you here. So let's just first start out, when did Jamar leave Memphis to come to Georgia?
She says Jamar was staying with his grandmother in Memphis while she was out of town.
So you said that he was going back and forth to a friend's house when you left for Vegas. Who's his friend?
I don't know his name. His name is Wu.
She said Jamar has a friend named Wu that lives down the street from where we live in Memphis. Aaron Todd said he brought somebody back from Memphis, and his name was Wu. So all the dots are being connected.
And we don't know Wu's real name. You have his social media? That's it? Okay. I'll get you back to the hospital, okay?
We'll see what we can come up with this. There we go.
Just 16 years old, Wu lives with his mother and younger brother in Memphis.
We know that Jamar is from Memphis, and he is connected with Wu, who is also friends with Aaron Todd. He was withholding some information from us.
Hey, this is Detective Carter.
We had come up with a plan to get him into police headquarters to speak with us by telling him that he could come up here and sit around for once we got done processing his car.
Thank you.
But we didn't tell him that while you're waiting, we're gonna have a chat.
This case was a very complex case, a very complicated first case, and Detective Daniel was on the right track, without a doubt. But we still had some holes that needed to be filled.
He has questions, you know what I'm saying?
Okay. Well, I've got an issue with what happened last night. The other dude that's critically injured, he just happens to be from Memphis, Tennessee. And I think you know who it is. I think something went wrong last night. And you may not have been involved, but you know what happened. Because it's not a coincidence that he's from Memphis.
So, like, a couple months before, like all this when I was calling from for like days.
Yeah.
Aaron Todd told us that Plug Bean Zaza in his phone was actually Capri Ward. And he told us, yes, I know Capri. I've bought marijuana from him.
So like that, so it was cool, but it wasn't calling. It was like he wanted to hit him.
Who's what's it called?
Yeah.
He claims that Wu had the idea to rob Capri after staying in Gwinnett County last summer.
And so I would always tell him, like, bruh, no, like, you're not touching him. Like,
Yeah.
He's untouchable. And so Wednesday, when I got to Memphis, we brought two of his friends.
Okay, so who are the other two friends you said you brought back?
I think one of them was like Merk. I was the skinnier one.
Okay.
Chunky one was Junior. They call him Junior.
Junior?
He admitted to going to Memphis and picking up an individual named Wu, an individual he called Merk, and then a third individual, Junior, which was good information. But we're trying to piece together the timeline and a motive.
Like, they get down here and they said that they was getting all the money moved. And so,
He says Wu, Merk, and Junior wanted to rob someone,
they got in the car with some girl and left because they was going to get a telly. You know what I'm saying?
and that they went to a hotel.
That's when I was meeting with my girl. But yeah, so that's the last time I spoke to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
If there's anything else you need to tell me, we need to talk about it right now, okay?
His body language was just off for people telling the truth. I think Aaron's lying, and there's more that needs to be dug up here. So I kind of pressed in on him hard.
This is your chance to be either a witness or a suspect. You were supposed to be the getaway driver, weren't you?
Yeah, and I wasn't going for it.
18 hours into the investigation,
Aaron finally admitted to being involved, but we needed him to tell us the full facts of what happened.
So start from the beginning with the truth.
We was at the park. My girl was saying that she wanted to meet.
he says that Wu, Jamar, and Junior all rode with him to the apartment complex, and they sat in his car in the parking lot.
So it was like, hey, don't that plug still? Like, you feel me? I'm like, nah, like, that's still a no-go. Like, I don't want no parts of this.
Okay, so what happens when he gets out the car? Explain everyone's movement.
This I know. The plan was for Wu was supposed to get out. He was coming up the stairs from this side.
Mm-hmm.
Him and Jamar, whatever.
He now admits that the plan was for Jamar and Wu to rob Capri as he was walking up to his apartment.
The individual he called Merk was identified as Jamar Quarles, which was important as far as finding the other individuals involved.
Everything's coming together. And Aaron Todd is the one that is filling in the blanks for us.
And Junior was supposed to come up the back, so nobody saw, you feel me? So it'd be like he couldn't go nowhere. When I heard the gunshots, it was just like I was the gunshot, and boom, I hit the fence.
I have no doubt that Aaron Todd was shocked when he heard gunshots coming from that breezeway. And panic immediately set in because he's not stupid. He knows what happened. Either his friends got shot or the victim got shot or both got shot.
And I think there was this small piece of conscience telling him to just come out and tell the truth.
So there's blood in your back seat. I'm curious as to how it got there.
The best thing I can imagine is, boom, shootout happened. Now I know he got hit, Jamar. So they probably maybe threw him in the car, but then they couldn't find the keys or something. You know what I'm saying?
Who had the gun?
All three of them had one.
Where are they at right now?
I don't know exactly where they at, but that's the truth, and that's what happened.
Give us 1 second, okay?
In Aaron's mind during the interview, he didn't pull the trigger of any of those firearms. In his mind, he had no involvement whatsoever.
Stupid, bro.
And because of that, he was trying to help the investigation and identify those responsible. However, when you conspire to commit a robbery, even just the planning portion of it, it's considered party to a crime.
So right now you're gonna be placed under arrest, okay?
Based on Aaron Todd's own admittance, he was charged with aggravated assault and felony murder. Based on the information he provided to us, we had enough at that time to charge Wu for also aggravated assault, felony murder. We already knew who Jamar Quarles was, but we were still working on the identity of Junior at that time. All right, bye-bye. According to the hospital staff, Jamar's still considered critical. He was brought out of sedation, and apparently he didn't do too well, so they had to put him back under. And unfortunately, this is really impactful on the investigation because you can't get information from somebody that can't talk to you.
Later.
This is Detective Daniel.
Daniel gets news from the hospital about Jamar.
All right, thanks. So his mom basically found out that her son got shot over an armed robbery and immediately went to the hospital and pulled him out of the hospital against medical advice.
Innocent people don't run.
Nope. We never said that we believe your son to be a suspect in this, but Jamar is involved in this to an extent that even his mom knows it. And he has a 3-hour head start on us. So mom goes and pulls him out of the hospital and runs back to Memphis. That's where they had family. That's where they knew that they could lay low. It's always important to get every side, every person's story. Jamar may be willing to provide more information. So there was a sense of urgency with locating them and to identify Junior.
8 days into the investigation.
All right, I appreciate all the help. Thank you. So that was Memphis PD. They told me that Wu does have what appears to be a younger brother named Junior. He's 15 years old. I'm hoping this is the same individual. What we'll do is put him in a photo lineup.
We already knew Jamar Quarles was Merck based on Aaron Todd's interview and because he was found at the scene shot. Aaron Todd and Jamar Quarles' mom helped us identify Wu, so we really needed Aaron Todd to positively identify the person who we believe to be Junior.
Several weeks later,
If you could just have a seat right here.
after bonding out of jail, Aaron Todd arrives with his attorney.
My first meeting with Mr. Todd obviously was very somber. I could tell this was the most serious thing that had ever happened to him. And my only advice was, you have got to be honest.
I'm Detective George said.
Because Aaron Todd only named them off by nicknames, it's very important to have him pick those individuals out of a photographic lineup to further show that he knows who he's talking about.
I'm gonna read you all. This first one we look at.
he positively IDs Wu, Jamar, and Junior as taking part in attempting to rob Capri.
Good. Picked them all out. Right then and there, we had enough probable cause to swear out arrest warrants against Junior. I went ahead and contacted the U.S. Marshals and let them know about the active arrest warrants for Wu, Jamar, and Junior.
Three months since Capri's murder.
Gwinnett Homicide, Detective Daniel. Okay, cool. All right, thank you. Well, looks like the U.S. Marshals have arrested all three of my guys up in Memphis. I immediately called Capri's mom and let her know that they had been arrested, but we're informed that based on the ages of the juveniles, we were not able to interview them without their legal representation being present.
It didn't bring Capri back, but I was so happy they were caught. Now they're off the streets, and I want justice to be served.
Now the case can move into the follow-up investigation and then prosecution.
From those who wear the badge to the prosecutors in the courtroom, we all have that pressure of making sure that justice is done. I like to compare it to the starting pitcher in baseball and the closing pitcher. It's my job to close the game.
The biggest lead on the case was a suspect vehicle that was found, and he immediately was interviewed. His interview explains that he drives up to the Memphis, Tennessee area to pick up 3 people.
Who are our main players?
Aaron Todd identified Marion Boylan as one of the people he drove from Tennessee.
And that would be Wu.
Correct. One of the defendants, Jamar Quarles, was found at the crime scene. Lastly, Aaron Todd says he also picks up Wu's younger brother, who is Theus Hobson.
Junior and Theus Hobson.
Correct.
I was very concerned about the evidence because what we had was Aaron Todd's testimony, but we needed some other evidence.
Georgia law prohibits that there be a conviction based solely upon the accomplice's testimony. There must be some form of evidence to corroborate what the testifying witness has to say.
If this is all we have is just Aaron Todd's interview and we don't have anything else, I don't know if we're going to be able to prove this case.
There was a very interesting break that came after this murder.
When I got the file, I did see a note that the federal government, through the ATF, had investigated this case.
A Taurus G2C firearm was recovered in a completely separate incident. That Taurus hits as being used in this crime scene.
The Gwinnett County Police Department responded to a domestic disturbance call. A firearm was collected. That firearm actually is linked to the murder of Capri Ward. The next step was, of course, how we were going to connect it to one of the defendants in this case.
The 2 cell phones that were found inside Aaron Todd's vehicle, one of the cell phones clearly belongs to Jamar Quarles. There was videos on the cell phone of him with a face mask holding a Taurus G2C firearm.
Having not only the shell casings match the gun, but having the video showing that same or similar looking firearm in that video certainly was corroborative evidence in this case.
In the case against Theus Hobson, we have Aaron Todd who identifies Theus Hobson being at the crime scene and being involved in this robbery. But again, even if we could prove he was there, we had the second question. What was his role in this robbery?
Mere presence is insufficient. But also, Mr. Hobson's DNA was found at the crime scene, is that right?
It was found on a piece of a firearm, a tack laser, that was sitting right next to multiple shell casings. It showed he was likely one of the shooters.
Jamar Quarles, we had him at the crime scene. Theus Hobson, we had his DNA on a piece of a firearm. In the case against Marion Boylan, the biggest lead that we found was another cell phone inside Aaron Todd's car. But was Amarian Boylan actually there at the crime scene using that phone? And did he leave that phone when he fled the crime scene?
The last person the user of this phone was messaging was a female, and the user of that phone sent a screenshot to her showing where that user of the phone was, and it showed the person who sent that message was at the crime scene.
We had our investigators go out and locate her. I asked her who was the person that she believed she was texting in these messages. She told me it was Wu, Amarian Boylan. So as soon as she tells us that, we put a subpoena in her hand and say, we need you to show up for trial.
4 years since Capri Ward's murder, the trial begins.
It is a packed courtroom. 2 prosecutors at one table, facing 3 different defense attorneys.
All right.
Morning. When Mr. Ward was killed, I believe Theus was 15 years old. Each attorney is going to try to get the jury to look at the defendant like a kid as opposed to someone that the state is alleging gunned down Capri Ward.
Thank you, Your Honor. State calls Terrell Acevedo.
Anytime you are trying a murder case, you need to make sure you humanize that victim for the jury. And no one can relay that to a jury better than a family member.
Make sure you speak into the microphone.
I felt good to be there, testify, but I had anxieties because I felt like I was representing for my son to get justice.
Tell the jury about your son.
I mean, he was a people's person. He had a lot of love. He was loved.
Hearing the testimony of a loved one is always tough. Mr. Acevedo talked about the Slim Jims that his son loved. It's the different little innocuous details. It brings a tear to your eye. I want to make sure that the jury sees and feels the same thing that I hear, see, and feel.
I looked at the officer and I'm like, why you're not resuscitated? For that moment, you know, he just gave me a look. And I knew that he was expired.
I want these defendants to see that you took something from us that we'll never get back. I want the jury to see who lost a child to murder.
The state calls the woman Amarian was texting the night of the murder.
State, call your next witness.
State calls. To get this evidence in, we actually needed her to come in and testify as to who she was texting the night of this murder. She was an important witness in this case.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
She was not thrilled about showing up. We didn't know what exactly she would say when she got on the stand.
So you were shown some messages when you met with the investigator, correct?
Yeah.
Do you admit or deny that you were asked, Amarian, he is the person you would have been messaging there, and you saying, yeah?
I deny that.
When I asked her who she was messaging, she played the I don't remember hand. I knew she wasn't being truthful.
Do we need to send the jury out?
Yes, ma'am.
When you've got a hostile witness, that's kind of a sick feeling you have as a prosecutor because they're not telling the truth and showing that they were willing to get up and change their story for the defendant.
Do we need to send the jury out?
Yes, ma'am.
Wait, the door is closed.
She denied knowing about Mr. Boylan's presence, and she denied the text messages exchanged about Amarian's locations in 2021 between the two of them.
Miss, the court admonishes you, you are under oath. You can be held in contempt for being untruthful.
She told law enforcement who she was texting before she had that subpoena, and I had her recorded statement of what she said, when she said it.
The 8:02 mark?
So we sent the jury out and confronted her with her tapes.
You said Amarian is the Wu, just to make sure I'm clear on that.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And you're messaging him. He would have been the person messaging him? Yes. Pausing at 8:34. I'm going to ask you again. Do you admit or deny that you said yes? Yes. Okay. Is it your intent to tell the truth in front of this jury? Yes. Thank you. Judge, we're ready to bring the jury back in. All right.
With her testimony, she might be trying to say things that might help the defense, and that's not necessarily always a great thing. This is not going to help our case.
And I will remind you again, I don't want to hold you in contempt of court, but I will.
Given her second chance, she then started to admit to texting with Wu, Mr. Boylan.
That's a screenshot of Max. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
That's sent from Wu, correct?
Yes.
It was a Marion who was texting her on the night of the murder, 30 minutes before the murder. That put a Marion at the crime scene. Having her admit under oath that she did in fact say something she didn't want to say on the stand, that's impactful for a jury.
Judge, let us know whenever you'd like us to bring Mr. Todd in.
You can bring him in now.
At the end of day 2, Aaron Todd takes the stand.
We had corroborating evidence, but the jury's going to want to know what in fact happened during this murder.
I explained to him, nobody can guarantee you some sort of a deal on the front end. You have to do this blindly.
What happened next?
When Mr. Capri pulls up, he gets out the car and he starts walking. They go around the front way, and then Junior, he come going around the back way. I hear a whole bunch of gunshots, and then I just take off running.
Did all 3 of them have firearms?
Yes, sir.
When he had to face them, that's a scary moment for anybody, but certainly for someone very young and certainly for somebody in that setting. But he did it.
Day 3, all 3 defense attorneys cross-examine Aaron.
How did you come about driving up to Memphis to pick them up?
He was asking me over the course of a couple weeks to go pick them up.
It's our job to convince the jury the state hasn't presented enough evidence to find you guilty beyond reasonable doubt. The best way to go about defending my client was to discredit and make Aaron Todd look unreliable, someone that can't be trusted.
They was going to give me a firearm when I get there.
This is someone that planned out a crime, involved a 15 and a 16 and 17-year-old to get a firearm. And what caused you to get out of the vehicle?
I heard Mr. Capri yelling.
You knew they were going to rob him, is what you're testifying to?
Yes, sir.
He's the one that knew this dealer. He brought them there to the parking lot. But when it all goes down, what's he doing? Aaron Todd has minimized whatever involvement he may have had in this crime. What we were trying to get across to the jury is the state's got to prove that whatever he's saying is true, and you can't believe it.
If this was a great plan on his behalf, I can guarantee you the car would not have been left at the scene of a murder. This was not something that he had planned, and I think that goes to his innocence in this case.
All right, may this witness be excused?
No objection.
All right, thank you, Mr. Todd.
It always came down to, this is the right thing to do, and I have to do this. And so he did. And we were just glad that it was behind him.
After 2 days of deliberation, the jury reaches a verdict.
Has the jury reached a verdict?
Are they going to look at the age of the defendants and allow that to factor into their decision of whether we've proven our case?
Mr. Quarles, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Mr. Hobson, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Mr. Boylan, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty of felony murder.
All of the defendants were found guilty of felony murder, criminal attempt to commit armed robbery, and aggravated assault. They turned their fantasy into reality, and that reality turned into a tragedy.
Nobody was blind to the fact of the ages involved here. Teenagers should not necessarily be doomed for the rest of their life because of a decision they made as teenagers. Unfortunately, it's just Hard to wrap your head around spending that much time in custody.
Our next question we had on this case is what to do with Aaron Todd.
Knowing that Mr. Todd had cooperated with the state and had ultimately assisted in the conviction of 3 other individuals, it was our office's decision that Mr. Todd should not serve any additional time in custody.
The final offer that we received in this case was basically a dismissal of the murder charges, and Aaron pled to an attempted armed robbery.
I feel that he should be in prison too. Because if it wasn't for him, my son would still be here. He took something very precious away from me and my family. I can forgive, but I will never forget what they did.
Big business. Keep going up. Keep going up.
I believe you. You can do it. I just miss him. His energy, his spirit, his smile, his jokes, his laugh.
He loved his mother. He loved everybody, but you know he loved his mother. He's missed. I didn't know how much I loved him.
There's not a day that goes by that I don't look at that picture. And it just reminds me of a time when I was able to hold him. He comes to me in dreams all the time, but he's always a little boy. Funny, running around, free. That's Capri now. I'm never gonna forget him, but I know he's always in my heart.
The first clue was hidden where nobody thought to look. Not inside a police file. Not inside a forgotten evidence box. Not beneath the floorboards of an abandoned house. It was hidden inside a family secret that survived for nearly 4 decades. A secret protected by silence. A secret carried through generations. And when investigators finally uncovered the truth, the discovery shocked an entire Georgia community. Because the person connected to one of the state's oldest cold cases was not a stranger, not an outsider. Not someone who disappeared into the night. It was someone who had been standing close to the family all along. On a cold November morning in 1985, the small town of Bellwood, Georgia, woke up to a mystery that would never truly leave. The town had always been quiet. The kind of place where people knew every street, every house, every family name. Where neighbors left their doors unlocked. Where children rode bicycles until sunset. Where everyone believed they understood the people around them. Until one morning proved they didn't. At 7:18 a.m., a call came into the Bellwood County Sheriff's Office. A woman reported that her sister had not shown up for work. At first, deputies treated it as a possible misunderstanding. People missed appointments. Cars broke down. Plans changed. But then they heard the name. Rebecca Holloway, 32 years old, local teacher, mother of 1. A woman known by almost everyone in Bellwood. Deputies drove to her home on Willow Ridge Road. The house appeared normal from the outside. No broken windows. No damaged doors. No obvious signs of panic. Her vehicle was parked in the driveway. Her purse was sitting on the kitchen counter. Her coffee cup was still beside the sink. Everything suggested Rebecca had planned to return, but she never did. Inside the house, investigators noticed something strange. The living room was perfectly organized. Too organized. Almost untouched. But in the hallway, near the back entrance, they found a small detail that changed everything. A single drop of blood. Then another. Then several more leading toward the bedroom. By the time detectives reached the room, they already knew they were no longer investigating a missing person. They were investigating a murder. Rebecca Holloway was found lying beside her bed. The scene shocked even experienced investigators. There were no witnesses, no clear suspect, no obvious motive, only questions. Who had entered the home? Why had Rebecca been targeted? And what secret had followed her into the final moments of her life? The first hours of the investigation created more confusion than answers. Detectives interviewed neighbors. Most reported hearing nothing unusual. One neighbor remembered seeing a dark pickup truck parked near Rebecca's house the previous evening. Another remembered a man walking along the road. But nobody could provide a name. Nobody could provide a license plate. Nobody could provide the one detail police needed, a connection. Rebecca's personal life appeared ordinary. She had worked at Bellwood Elementary School for nearly 8 years. Her students describe her as patient and kind. Her colleagues describe her as dependable. Her family described her as someone who avoided conflict. She had no known enemies, no history of threats, no reason anyone could understand. But investigators soon discovered something unusual. Rebecca had recently started asking questions about her own family history. Questions she had never asked before. Questions that made certain relatives uncomfortable. When detectives searched her home, they found a notebook hidden inside her desk drawer. At first, it appeared to be a simple journal. Daily thoughts, school notes, personal reminders. But several pages contained names, dates, and one sentence written repeatedly. The truth was buried for a reason. Investigators immediately focused on that line. What truth? What was buried? And why was Rebecca searching for it? The answer seemed connected to the Holloway family itself. A family respected throughout Bellwood. A family with deep roots in the community. A family that had lived in Georgia for generations. But behind the public image was a history nobody wanted discussed. Rebecca's father, William Holloway, had died several years earlier. Her mother, Evelyn, refused to answer questions about the journal. Her older brother, Michael, became defensive when detectives mentioned Rebecca's investigation. She was confused, he told police. She was looking into things that didn't matter. But detectives noticed something. Everyone gave the same response, almost the exact same words, as if the family had rehearsed them. That immediately raised suspicion, because investigators knew one thing. People rarely agree so perfectly unless they are protecting something. The case quickly became the biggest story in Bellwood. Local newspapers called it the Willow Ridge Mystery. Residents gathered outside the Holloway home. Reporters searched for answers. Rumors spread through the town. Some believed Rebecca discovered something dangerous. Others believed the killer was someone she trusted. But weeks passed, then months. The investigation slowed. Evidence was limited. Witnesses remembered less. Leads disappeared. The case began fading into the long list of unsolved murders across America. Then came the first major break. A year after Rebecca's death, detectives received an anonymous envelope. No return address. No fingerprints. Inside was an old photograph. A photograph taken in 1974, more than a decade before the murder. The image showed the Holloway family standing outside their childhood home. Rebecca, her parents, her brother, and one person nobody recognized, a young man standing behind them, his face partially hidden. On the back of the photograph were 5 words. He knows what happened. Investigators immediately reopened interviews. They questioned the family again. This time, Rebecca's brother Michael admitted something he had denied before. The man in the photograph was real. His name was Daniel Cross. And according to Michael, Daniel had once been close to the Holloway family. Very close. But after a mysterious argument in 1975, Daniel disappeared from their lives. Nobody mentioned him again. Nobody explained why. The family simply erased him. The problem was that Rebecca had not erased him. She had found him. 3 months before her death, phone records showed Rebecca contacted Daniel Cross multiple times. The final call happened 2 days before she was killed. The conversation lasted 27 minutes. No one knew what they discussed. But detectives now had a new question. What did Rebecca learn? And why did someone kill her before she could reveal it? The search for Daniel Cross became the center of the investigation. But there was a problem. Daniel Cross was gone. No current address. No active records. No trace. It was as if he had vanished. Exactly the way the Holloway family wanted. For years, investigators searched. They followed rumors. They checked old records. They contacted former neighbors. Nothing. Daniel Cross remained a ghost. And without him, the case went cold. Decades passed. The town changed. New families moved into Bellwood. The old Holloway house was eventually sold. The investigators who first worked the case retired. The files were stored away. The name Rebecca Holloway became another forgotten headline. But the mystery never completely disappeared, because one question remained unanswered. What was the secret hidden inside the Holloway family? And why was Rebecca willing to risk everything to uncover it? 37 years later, a new cold case unit opened the file again, not because of a new witness, not because of a confession, but because of a forgotten piece of evidence discovered inside an old family storage box. A letter written in 1985, never delivered, never opened, signed by someone investigators thought was long gone, Daniel Cross. And the first sentence of that letter revealed something nobody expected. Rebecca was right. Your family has been lying for 40 years. The cold case was no longer silent. The secret buried beneath the Holloway family was finally beginning to surface. The letter changed everything. For decades, the investigation into Rebecca Holloway's death had been trapped inside a wall of silence. A wall built by time. A wall built by fear. And most importantly, a wall built by the people who knew the truth. The old envelope was discovered in a forgotten storage container belonging to Rebecca's late mother, Evelyn Holloway. It was found almost by accident. A family member cleaning out the abandoned Holloway property discovered a box filled with photographs, handwritten notes, and documents that had been untouched for years. Most of the items seemed meaningless. Old receipts, family records, birthday cards, until investigators found the envelope hidden beneath a stack of photographs. The name written across the front immediately stopped everyone. Daniel Cross. The same name that had haunted the investigation since the anonymous photograph arrived decades earlier. The same man who disappeared after becoming connected to the Holloway family. The same man Rebecca had desperately tried to contact before her death. The envelope had never been mailed. It had never been opened. And inside was a message that suggested Rebecca was not chasing a rumor. She was chasing the truth. The letter was dated October 1985, just weeks before Rebecca's death. Daniel wrote about something that had happened many years earlier, something involving the Holloway family, something that he believed could destroy them. But the letter was incomplete. The final pages were missing. Someone had removed them. Investigators immediately wondered who had found the letter before them, and more importantly, who had hidden it. The discovery reopened the case with a force nobody expected. The Bellwood Sheriff's Office created a new cold case team. Detective Laura Bennett was assigned as lead investigator. Unlike the original detectives from 1985, Laura had access to modern technology, digital archives, advanced fingerprint analysis, improved DNA testing, tools that investigators decades earlier could only imagine. But Laura knew something else. Technology could find evidence. It could not explain why people lied. And everyone connected to the Holloway family had been lying. The first person she interviewed was Michael Holloway, Rebecca's older brother, now in his late 60s, living alone outside Atlanta. When Laura arrived at his home, Michael immediately knew why she was there. The moment she mentioned the letter, his expression changed. Not surprise. Fear. You found it, he said quietly. Those 3 words told investigators more than any confession could, because Michael did not ask what letter. He already knew. During the interview, Michael admitted Daniel Cross had once been part of their family, not by blood, but by connection. Daniel grew up in Bellwood. His father worked for William Holloway, Rebecca's father. The 2 families were close, almost inseparable. Daniel spent weekends at the Holloway home. He ate dinner there, celebrated holidays with them. To outsiders, he looked like another member of the family. But in 1975, everything changed. Daniel disappeared. The official story was that he left town after an argument with William Holloway. But Michael admitted that was not the truth. What really happened? Detective Bennett asked. Michael remained silent for several seconds. Then he answered. Daniel found something. The room became quiet. What did he find? Michael looked away. I don't know. But detectives knew he was hiding something, because his next sentence revealed more. He should have stayed away. That statement became the center of the new investigation. What did Daniel discover in 1975? And why did the Holloway family spend decades trying to erase him? Investigators returned to Rebecca's journal. The pages were examined using modern imaging technology. Several sections that appeared blank were enhanced. Hidden writing appeared beneath the surface. Rebecca had used pressure while writing, leaving impressions on later pages. The recovered words created a disturbing timeline. Rebecca had discovered a name, a person connected to her family, a person she believed had been involved in a crime decades earlier. That name was not Daniel Cross. It was someone much closer, William Holloway, her own father. Even though William had been dead for years, Rebecca had been investigating him. She had found old financial records, property transfers, private documents. One entry appeared repeatedly. A payment made in 1975, a large amount of money, paid to Daniel Cross. But there was no explanation, no contract, no record of services, just money. And then Daniel disappeared. Investigators began reconstructing what happened in 1975. William Holloway was a successful businessman, owner of several properties around Bellwood, a respected figure, the kind of man whose reputation protected him. But detectives discovered another side. Several former employees described him as controlling, aggressive, someone who believed problems could be solved quietly. One former worker agreed to speak after decades of silence. His name was Harold Jenkins. He had worked for William in 1975. When detectives asked about Daniel Cross, Harold immediately became nervous. I knew this day would come, he said. The statement shocked investigators. What do you mean? Harold explained that Daniel discovered something while working for William, a hidden operation involving stolen money and falsified records. Daniel threatened to expose it. According to Harold, William tried to stop him, not with violence at first, with money. The payment. The one Rebecca later discovered, but Daniel refused. Then everything changed. A week later, Daniel vanished. No body. No explanation. No investigation. The town simply accepted that he left. But Harold revealed something investigators had never heard. Daniel did not leave voluntarily. He was afraid. And someone inside the Holloway family knew why. The investigation now had two connected mysteries. Daniel Cross disappeared in 1975. Rebecca Holloway was murdered in 1985. Both events connected to the same family. Both surrounded by silence. Both involving secrets that someone was willing to protect. Detectives searched for more information about Daniel. They found old employment records, old photographs, old police contacts. Then they discovered something unexpected. Daniel Cross had not vanished completely. He had been living under another name, in another state, for decades. And investigators finally located him. At 70 years old, Daniel Cross was living quietly in a small town in Tennessee. When detectives arrived at his home, he opened the door, and before they could introduce themselves, he looked at them and said, "Rebecca found the truth, didn't she?" The detectives froze, because they had not mentioned Rebecca. They had not shown him the photograph. They had not explained why they were there. Daniel already knew, and then he said something that would completely change the direction of the investigation. The person who killed Rebecca is not the person you think. He stepped aside, invited detectives inside, and for the first time in 37 years, the man who disappeared was ready to tell the story of what happened inside the Holloway family. A story involving betrayal, a hidden crime, and a secret that began long before Rebecca Holloway was born. Daniel Cross had spent 37 years waiting for someone to find him, not because he wanted attention, not because he wanted revenge, but because he believed one day the truth would return. And when detectives finally arrived at his front door, he knew the past had finally caught up. Inside Daniel's small Tennessee home, investigators found a life completely different from the one they expected. No signs of hiding. No fake identities. No attempt to disappear again. Just an old man surrounded by books, photographs, and boxes filled with memories he had carried across decades. On a table near the window sat a photograph. The same photograph investigators had discovered in the Holloway family storage box. The picture from 1974. The Holloway family standing outside their home. Rebecca smiling. Michael standing beside her. William and Evelyn behind them. And Daniel in the background. Detective Laura Bennett placed the photograph on the table. "Why did you keep this?" Daniel stared at the image for several seconds. Then he answered, "Because it was the last time everything was normal." That sentence immediately captured the attention of investigators. Because Daniel was not describing a simple family disagreement. He was describing a moment before something broke. Something permanent. Laura asked a question that had remained unanswered for decades. What happened in 1975? Daniel looked down. For a moment, he appeared like someone fighting against a memory he had tried to bury. Then he began speaking. In 1975, Daniel was 24 years old. He worked for William Holloway's construction business. At the time, he admired William. Everyone did. William was successful, respected, powerful. He was the kind of person people wanted approval from. Daniel said William treated him like family, until the day he discovered something hidden inside the company records. Money was disappearing. Large amounts. Payments that had no explanation. Properties transferred through fake agreements. Names that existed only on paper. At first, Daniel believed it was a mistake, a bookkeeping error, something that could be explained. But the deeper he looked, the more disturbing the truth became. William Holloway was stealing from his own business, and he was using other people to hide it. Daniel confronted him. He expected anger. He expected denial. But what happened was worse. William calmly admitted everything. According to Daniel, William told him, "Everyone has a price." Daniel said William offered him money. A lot of money. Enough to leave Bellwood forever. Enough to start a new life somewhere else. But Daniel refused. He threatened to go to the authorities. That was the moment everything changed. William stopped seeing him as family. He started seeing him as a threat. Days later, Daniel was attacked outside his apartment. He never saw who did it, but the message was clear. Stay quiet. Leave town. Forget what you know. Daniel did not leave because he wanted to. He left because he believed staying would get him killed. But before leaving Georgia, he made one mistake. He told Rebecca. At the time, Rebecca was 22 years old, young, curious. And unlike the rest of her family, she did not blindly trust William. Daniel said Rebecca believed him. She promised she would help. But she was young. She did not understand how dangerous the situation had become. The night before Daniel left Bellwood, he gave Rebecca a folder. Inside were copies of financial records, documents proving what William had done. Daniel believed Rebecca would keep them safe. But years later, that decision would come back, because Rebecca never forgot. She kept searching. She kept asking questions. And eventually, she found the same evidence Daniel thought had disappeared. Detectives listened carefully, because Daniel's story created a new timeline. Rebecca had not randomly become interested in her family history. She had inherited a secret from 1975, a secret someone believed was still buried. But investigators still needed answers about one thing. Why was Rebecca killed 10 years later? Daniel explained. After leaving Georgia, he tried to move on. He changed his name, started a new life, built a family. But he never stopped worrying about Rebecca. Then, in 1985, he received a phone call from Rebecca. She told him she had found the documents. She told him she knew the truth about her father. But she also told him something else. She was scared, because someone else knew she had been looking. Daniel remembered her exact words. Someone in my family knows. The call lasted less than 30 minutes, but it changed everything. Daniel wanted her to leave Bellwood. He told her to get away, but Rebecca refused. She believed the truth had to come out. 2 days later, she was dead. The detectives sat silently because the story matched the evidence. Rebecca had discovered a family secret. She contacted Daniel. She was afraid. Then someone killed her. But one major question remained. Who inside the Holloway family knew? The investigators returned to the people closest to Rebecca, her mother, Evelyn, her brother, Michael, and the person everyone had underestimated, Rebecca's uncle, Charles Holloway, William's younger brother. Charles had never been a major focus in the original investigation. He was considered a grieving relative, nothing more. But new records showed something disturbing. Charles received ownership of several properties shortly after Rebecca's death. Properties connected to William's old business. The same business where money disappeared. The same business Daniel had exposed. Detectives examined Charles's background. Unlike William, Charles stayed out of public attention. He avoided interviews, avoided newspapers, avoided questions. But behind the scenes, he had been involved in family decisions for decades. When investigators looked deeper, they found something unexpected. Charles was the last person known to have visited Rebecca before her death. He told police in 1985 that he stopped by only briefly, a friendly family visit, nothing unusual. But Rebecca's journal suggested something different. 3 days before her murder, she wrote, "Uncle Charles knows." That single sentence changed the entire investigation, because detectives had spent 37 years looking for a stranger, someone outside the family, someone with a hidden motive. But Rebecca's own words pointed somewhere else. Inside. The suspect was not someone who broke into the Holloway family's world. The suspect was someone born into it. Investigators immediately reopened Charles Holloway's file. They found inconsistencies, small details that had been ignored, a changed timeline, a missing phone record, a statement that did not match another witness. The original detectives had never noticed, because Charles had no obvious reason to be suspicious. He was family, and family members were often trusted, until they weren't. Then came the discovery that shocked the entire cold case team. Inside the original evidence files was a handwritten note from 1985, written by the first detective assigned to the case. The note had never been entered into the official report. It contained only one sentence. Family knows more than they admit. For decades, that warning sat buried, ignored, forgotten. But now, investigators finally understood. The biggest clue had never been hidden in the evidence room. It had been hidden in plain sight. The Holloway family had protected a secret for 40 years, and the person who protected it the longest was about to become the unexpected suspect nobody saw coming. The name Charles Holloway had been in the case file since the beginning, but for 37 years, nobody looked at him twice. That was a mistake. The kind of mistake that happens in investigations when people believe they already understand the story. In 1985, detectives were searching for an intruder, a stranger, someone who entered Rebecca Holloway's home with a reason to hurt her. They searched the streets. They questioned outsiders. They followed rumors. But they never truly questioned the family standing closest to her, because Charles Holloway was not an outsider. He was family. He attended the funeral. He comforted Rebecca's mother. He spoke publicly about wanting justice. He was the person everyone trusted. And sometimes, the person everyone trusts is the person nobody investigates. When Detective Laura Bennett reopened the file, she started from the beginning, not from the assumptions, not from the original theories, from the evidence. She studied every interview, every statement, every timeline. And she noticed something strange. Charles had always described Rebecca's death as a tragedy he could not understand, but his words were different from everyone else. Neighbors talked about Rebecca. Friends talked about Rebecca. Her students talked about Rebecca. They describe her personality, her habits, her dreams. Charles only talked about the event, the crime, the investigation, the damage to the family name. It was a subtle difference. But experienced investigators knew subtle differences mattered. Laura decided to look closer. She examined Charles's financial history. At first, nothing appeared unusual. Then she found a series of transfers. Small amounts, spread over years. Money moving between accounts connected to the Holloway family businesses. The transfers began shortly after William Holloway's death, and they increased after Rebecca was murdered. The pattern suggested something important. Someone benefited from Rebecca being gone, but money alone was not enough. Detectives needed a direct connection, a piece of evidence that placed Charles near the crime. That evidence came from the most unexpected place, a damaged box of old photographs. Inside the box were pictures from Rebecca's house, photos taken by investigators in 1985. Most were standard crime scene images, rooms, furniture, evidence markers. But one photograph showed something investigators had missed, a reflection in the glass of a hallway picture frame, a partial image, a shadow, someone standing near the back entrance. The original detectives thought it was a camera artifact, but modern enhancement technology revealed something different. A person, a man, wearing a jacket identical to one Charles Holloway owned. The image was blurry, not enough for a positive identification, but enough to reopen questions. Then came another discovery, a fingerprint found on an old piece of furniture inside Rebecca's home. The fingerprint had never been processed because the original sample was considered too damaged. Modern analysis changed that. The print was incomplete, but usable. Investigators compared it against available records, and the result came back. A match. Charles Holloway. The room went silent. For decades, detectives believed they were missing the evidence, but the evidence had been there, waiting. Charles had been inside Rebecca's home, and he had never admitted it. When confronted, Charles immediately changed his story. At first, he claimed he had never entered the house that night. Then he admitted he had stopped by. Then he said he was there because he was worried about Rebecca. 3 different explanations. 3 different stories. Detectives knew what that meant. The truth was somewhere between them. Charles agreed to another interview. This time, investigators brought Daniel Cross's testimony. They brought the financial records. They brought Rebecca's journal. And they brought the fingerprint. Charles looked at the evidence. For several minutes, he said nothing. Then he asked one question. Did Daniel tell you everything? Detective Bennett noticed the wording. Not. Who is Daniel? Not. Why are you talking about him? Charles already knew. He knew Daniel had been found. He knew the past was coming back. That was when investigators realized something terrifying. Charles had not been surprised by the investigation. He had been afraid of it. The interview continued. Charles admitted that he knew about William's illegal business activities. He admitted he helped cover certain things after William died, but he denied killing Rebecca. He claimed Rebecca had become obsessed with exposing the family. He said she threatened to destroy everything. She didn't understand what she was doing. Charles said. Detectives asked, "So you were protecting the family?" Charles remained silent. That silence became one of the most important moments of the investigation, because protecting a secret could explain everything. The missing records, the hidden letters, the decades of silence. But it still did not prove murder. Then investigators found the final piece, a voicemail recording, an old cassette recovered from Rebecca's workplace, a recording that had been overlooked because the tape was labeled incorrectly. The date was October 15th, 1985, 2 days before Rebecca died. The voice on the recording was Rebecca. She sounded nervous, afraid, but determined. She was leaving a message for someone she trusted. She said, "I know what happened in 1975. A pause. Then, I know who helped him. Investigators listened closely. The next sentence changed everything. I know Uncle Charles was there. The tape ended, but it was enough. Rebecca had named him, not publicly, not in a newspaper, not in a police report, but privately. Before her death, she knew, and someone knew she knew. The investigation shifted completely. Charles Holloway was no longer just a witness. He became the primary suspect. The man who spent decades hiding behind the Holloway family name. The man who helped bury the truth. But there was still one final mystery. If Charles killed Rebecca, how did he do it? And why did he leave behind evidence that could eventually expose him? The answer was buried inside another forgotten item. A medical report from 1985. A report that revealed Rebecca's final moments. And inside that report was a detail investigators had completely misunderstood. A detail that would finally reveal the terrifying reason Rebecca Holloway was silenced. The medical report had been sitting inside the case file for 37 years. A few pages, a few observations, a few handwritten notes from the original examiner. At the time, nobody considered it important, because investigators were focused on finding the person who entered Rebecca Holloway's home. They were looking for a weapon, a witness, a stranger. They never realized the answer was hidden inside the final moments of Rebecca's life. When Detective Laura Bennett reviewed the report again, she noticed a sentence that had been overlooked, a sentence written in the margin by the medical examiner. Victim appeared to recognize the attacker. That single line changed the entire direction of the investigation. Rebecca did not fight like someone attacked by a stranger. She reacted like someone confronted by a person she knew, someone she trusted, someone she allowed close. And that matched everything detectives had discovered. There were no signs of forced entry, no broken locks, no damaged windows. Whoever entered the house did not break in. Rebecca opened the door. She let them inside because she knew them. And investigators now had a name. Charles Holloway. The man who spent decades pretending he knew nothing. The man whose fingerprint was found inside the house. The man Rebecca personally named before her death. But detectives still needed to understand the motive. Why would Charles kill his own niece? The answer led back to 1975. Back to William Holloway. Back to the secret that started everything. Daniel Cross explained that William's crimes were larger than anyone imagined. The missing money was only the beginning. William had created a network of fake companies, false property records, hidden accounts. He had moved millions of dollars through businesses that existed only on paper. But William had one problem. People knew. And people who knew could become dangerous. Daniel had escaped. But not everyone did. One of those people was Charles. According to Daniel, Charles was not just aware of William's crimes. He helped him. Charles handled paperwork, moved documents, covered mistakes. He was not the person in charge. He was the person who made the operation possible. When William died, Charles inherited more than property. He inherited the responsibility of protecting the secret, and Rebecca became the biggest threat. Because Rebecca was not looking for money. She was looking for answers. She wanted to understand why Daniel disappeared, why her father had lied, why her family had spent decades pretending nothing happened. And eventually, she found out. Investigators reconstructed the final week of Rebecca's life. 7 days before her death, she discovered the old financial records. 6 days before her death, she contacted Daniel Cross. 5 days before her death, she confronted Michael. 3 days before her death, she wrote in her journal, "They know I found it." 2 days before her death, she recorded the voicemail mentioning Charles. 1 day before her death, someone entered her home while she was away. The evidence suggested that person searched through her belongings, looking for something, looking for the documents, looking for proof. But Rebecca had already hidden them. She had anticipated someone might come, and that decision may have been the reason the truth survived. The documents were eventually found hidden behind a loose panel in Rebecca's bedroom closet. Inside was everything: financial records, Names. Dates. Signatures. Including one signature that shocked investigators. Charles Holloway. His name appeared repeatedly, approving transfers, authorizing payments, moving money. The evidence was no longer just a family secret. It was a criminal operation, and Rebecca was about to expose it. The arrest of Charles Holloway happened early on a Tuesday morning, 37 years after Rebecca's death. The same town that once protected the Holloway name watched as police arrived at Charles's home. Neighbors stood outside. Some were shocked. Others said they always suspected something was wrong. The man who had spent decades appearing in local newspapers as a grieving uncle was now being accused of murder. But Charles did not confess. He maintained his innocence. His attorney released a statement calling the investigation a desperate attempt to blame an elderly man for a crime he did not commit. The defense argued that Charles's fingerprint proved only that he had visited Rebecca. They argued the financial records showed family involvement, not murder. They argued Daniel Cross was unreliable, a man who disappeared, a man who waited decades before speaking. The case would depend on whether investigators could prove one thing, not that Charles knew the secret, but that he killed Rebecca to keep it hidden. Then prosecutors discovered one final piece of evidence. A handwritten note found inside Charles's personal files. The note was dated October 1985, the week before Rebecca died. It contained only one sentence, a sentence that would become the center of the trial. She found what William left behind. At first, it seemed like a confession, but there was more. Underneath the sentence was another line, written later. Different handwriting. Then we have no choice. The identity of the second writer was unknown. The note immediately raised new questions. Was Charles acting alone, or was someone else involved? Investigators returned to the Holloway family. They looked at Michael, Rebecca's brother, the person who had lied during the original investigation, the person who knew more than he admitted. When detectives confronted him again, Michael finally broke. He admitted he had helped hide evidence after Rebecca's death, but he claimed he never wanted her harmed. He said Charles threatened him, threatened the entire family. Michael revealed something shocking. The night before Rebecca died, Charles called a family meeting, not at his house, not at William's old business, at a private location outside Bellwood. Michael said Charles told him Rebecca had discovered everything, and then Charles said something terrifying. If she talks, everything falls apart. Those words became the final connection, because investigators now understood the real tragedy. Rebecca was not killed because she discovered a secret. She was killed because she refused to bury it. The woman who spent years searching for truth became the person who finally exposed it. But the trial would reveal an even darker possibility, because as prosecutors prepared their case, they discovered that Charles Holloway may not have been the only person responsible. A second suspect emerged. Someone nobody expected. Someone who had spent 37 years pretending to be a victim. And when that name became public, the entire town of Bellwood was left speechless. The second suspect changed everything. For weeks, investigators believed they had finally uncovered the person responsible for Rebecca Holloway's death. Charles Holloway. The uncle who knew the family secret. The man whose fingerprint was found inside Rebecca's home. The man whose own words suggested he helped protect something buried for decades. But as prosecutors prepared for trial, a new question emerged. What if Charles was not the only person protecting the secret? What if the Holloway family's silence was not controlled by one person? What if several people had chosen to let Rebecca die? The answer came from a place investigators never expected. Rebecca's own brother, Michael Holloway. For decades, Michael had presented himself as another victim, a grieving brother, a man who lost someone he loved, a man who simply wanted answers. But when detectives reviewed the entire case again, they noticed something disturbing. Michael was always close to the truth, too close. He knew about Daniel Cross. He knew about the 1975 scandal. He knew Rebecca was investigating their father. And most importantly, he knew Rebecca was afraid. But he never warned police. He never told detectives about Daniel. He never mentioned the financial records. He never revealed the family meeting with Charles. He remained silent. For 37 years, investigators brought Michael back for another interview. This time, the room was different. There was no friendly conversation, no family sympathy, only evidence. Detective Laura Bennett placed the documents on the table, the financial records, the voicemail recording, Rebecca's journal, the photograph, the letter from Daniel. Then she placed one final item in front of him, a copy of a handwritten note, the note that contained the sentence, "Then we have no choice." "Was this your handwriting?" Laura asked. Michael stared at it. His hands began shaking. For several seconds, he said nothing. Then he whispered, "Yes." The admission changed the investigation. Because Michael had spent years claiming he knew nothing, now he admitted he wrote part of the note. But his explanation was unexpected. He said Charles forced him. He claimed Charles threatened to destroy the family if anyone spoke. He said he was terrified. "I was 29 years old," Michael said. "I thought he was going to kill me too." Investigators listened, but they had heard similar explanations before. Fear. Pressure. Threats. The same excuses people use when they chose silence. Laura asked a question that mattered. What happened the night Rebecca died? Michael closed his eyes, and after 37 years, he finally told the story. According to Michael, Charles arrived at the Holloway home that evening. He knew Rebecca had the documents. He knew she planned to expose the family. Michael said he followed Charles there, not to help him, but because he was afraid. When he arrived, Rebecca and Charles were already arguing. Michael said Rebecca was angry, not scared. She told Charles she would go to the police. She told him the Holloway name meant nothing if it was built on lies. Then Charles lost control. The argument became physical. Rebecca fought back. She scratched him. She pushed him away. And then everything went silent. Michael said he stood there frozen, watching, not stopping it, not calling for help, just watching. Then Charles looked at him and said, "Now you understand why nobody talks." That sentence stayed with Michael for 37 years, because he knew the truth. He knew Rebecca did not die because of a random attack. She died because her own family chose a secret over her life. But investigators still had questions. Why did Michael continue lying? Why protect Charles? Why protect himself? Michael's answer was simple. Because he believed the family would destroy him if he spoke. But prosecutors saw something else. They saw someone who benefited from silence. After Rebecca's death, Michael received control over several family assets. He inherited property, money, ownership rights. The same things that had motivated William Holloway years earlier, the same things that connected the entire family. The prosecution announced a new strategy. They would not present the case as one person hiding a crime. They would present it as a family system built on secrets, a chain where every person held a piece of the truth. Charles created the fear. Michael maintained the silence. William created the corruption. And Rebecca became the person who threatened to break the entire structure. The trial became one of the most watched cases in Georgia. Every day, more details emerged. The courtroom heard from Daniel Cross. For the first time publicly, he described what happened in 1975. He explained how William controlled people, how money was used as a weapon, how fear became a family tradition. Then prosecutors played Rebecca's final voicemail. Her voice filled the courtroom. Calm, determined, unaware that she had only days left. "I know Uncle Charles was there." Those words shocked everyone, because Rebecca knew. She knew before anyone else. The defense tried to challenge the recording. They argued that Rebecca was mistaken, that fear had influenced her judgment, that naming Charles did not prove he killed her. But the prosecution responded with a powerful question. If Rebecca was wrong, why did everyone spend 37 years hiding the same truth? The question stayed with the jury, because the evidence showed one undeniable fact. The Holloway family did not simply fail to solve the mystery. They helped create it. As the trial moved toward its final days, investigators discovered one more hidden piece, a diary belonging to Evelyn Holloway, Rebecca's mother. A diary that had never been turned over to police. Inside were entries from the weeks following Rebecca's death, and one entry contained a sentence that revealed the darkest secret of all. Evelyn wrote, "I lost my daughter the night I chose my family over her." The diary explained everything. She knew Charles was involved. She knew Michael had been there. She knew the truth. And she stayed silent. The discovery changed the emotional center of the case. Because Rebecca's killer was not only the person who caused her death, it was everyone who allowed the truth to disappear. The cold case that began with a mysterious murder had become something much larger. A story about loyalty, fear, money, and the devastating cost of protecting a family name. But before the jury could decide the fate of Charles and Michael Holloway, one final piece of evidence was presented. A piece of evidence that connected directly to the night Rebecca died. A forgotten object, recovered from the Holloway family property. An object that revealed who had been inside Rebecca's home during her final moments. And when investigators identified whose fingerprints were on it, even the prosecution was shocked. The forgotten object was discovered beneath the floor of the old Holloway property, a place where nobody had searched for decades, a place where the past had been deliberately hidden. The discovery happened during a final forensic examination of the family's abandoned estate. Investigators had already searched the house years earlier, but technology had changed, methods had improved, and this time they were not just looking for what was visible. They were looking for what someone tried to hide. Behind a damaged wooden panel in the basement, investigators found a small metal container. Inside were several items: old photographs, a broken watch, a set of keys, and one object that immediately caught Detective Laura Bennett's attention, a small silver necklace. The same necklace Rebecca Holloway was wearing in photographs taken days before her death. The necklace had never been found at the crime scene. For 37 years, investigators believed it had disappeared, but now it was hidden inside the Holloway family home. The discovery created a new question. Why would Rebecca's necklace be inside a place connected to her own family? The answer came from a forensic examination. The necklace was not just evidence. It was a timeline. Modern analysis revealed tiny traces of material trapped inside the metal clasp, fibers, skin cells, and most importantly, DNA. Investigators compared the DNA profiles. One belonged to Rebecca. The second belonged to someone else, someone connected to the family, someone whose name had never appeared in the original investigation. The result shocked everyone. The DNA belonged to Michael Holloway, Rebecca's brother, the man who claimed he only arrived after everything happened, the man who claimed he tried to protect her, the man who said he was only a witness. Now, evidence showed he had direct contact with an item connected to Rebecca's final moments. The defense immediately responded. They argued the DNA proved nothing. Michael was Rebecca's brother. They lived in the same family home for years. His DNA could exist on her belongings naturally, and technically, they were right. The DNA alone was not enough, but investigators had something else. The location of the necklace, the hidden basement, the missing evidence, and Michael's changing story. For prosecutors, the necklace was not a smoking gun. It was something more important. It was proof that someone inside the family had removed evidence from the scene. Someone had taken an object from Rebecca's body. Someone had hidden it. And someone had spent decades pretending they knew nothing. The trial entered its final stage. The prosecution presented their final argument. They did not describe Rebecca's murder as a single act of violence. They described it as a final step in a chain of decisions. William Holloway built the corruption. Charles Holloway protected it. Michael Holloway helped bury it. And Rebecca Holloway discovered it. The prosecutor stood before the jury and held up the old photograph from 1974. The image of the family before everything changed. Look carefully, he said, because this photograph shows exactly what this case was about. He pointed at Rebecca, the only person in this picture who wanted the truth. Then he pointed at the others, the people who wanted the truth to stay buried. The defense fought back. They argued the prosecution had created a dramatic story without enough proof. They questioned Daniel Cross's memory. They questioned Michael's confession. They questioned the reliability of evidence discovered decades later. But the jury had heard everything. 37 years of secrets. 37 years of silence. 37 years of people choosing protection over justice. After 3 days of deliberation, the jury returned. The courtroom was filled. Everyone wanted to hear the answer. The judge looked toward the foreperson. Have you reached a verdict? The answer came. Yes, Your Honor. The first verdict was for Charles Holloway, the man prosecutors identified as the person responsible for Rebecca's death. The courtroom became silent. Guilty. A wave of emotion moved through the room. Some people cried. Others simply sat still, because after decades of uncertainty, the name connected to Rebecca's murder finally had a judgment attached to it. Then came Michael Holloway. The courtroom waited. His case was different. He was not accused of causing Rebecca's death. He was accused of helping hide the truth, of protecting a secret, of allowing justice to disappear. The verdict was read. Guilty of obstruction and evidence tampering. Michael lowered his head. The man who spent decades saying he had no choice finally faced the consequences of the choices he made. But even after the verdicts, the case was not truly finished, because one question remained. Why did Rebecca have to die? Why did a family choose silence instead of saving one of their own? Years later, Detective Laura Bennett would say the hardest part of the investigation was not finding the killer. It was understanding why so many people helped the truth disappear. Because the murder itself happened in one moment, but the silence lasted 37 years. After the trial, the Holloway family name became permanently connected to one of Georgia's most disturbing cold cases. The story appeared in newspapers across the country. A headline repeated again and again. Georgia 1985 cold case cracked. Buried family secret exposes unexpected suspect. A case once defined by mystery was now defined by betrayal. But for the people of Bellwood, the story was never just about the arrests. It was about Rebecca, the woman who kept searching, the woman who refused to accept the lies, the woman who discovered a truth powerful enough to destroy everything around her. The final evidence review revealed something even more heartbreaking. Inside Rebecca's journal, investigators found one last unfinished entry, written the night before she died. Only a few words. Tomorrow I tell them everything. She never got that chance. But decades later, the truth finally spoke for her. The case that everyone believed would remain unsolved was finally broken open, not by a confession, not by a dramatic chase, but by forgotten evidence. A hidden letter, a damaged photograph, a buried necklace, and the courage of a woman who refused to let a family's secret disappear forever. But as investigators closed the file, they discovered one final mystery, a question that remained unanswered. Rebecca had been preparing to reveal everything. She had gathered documents, recorded messages, contacted Daniel. But one important piece of evidence was still missing. The original folder containing the complete financial records, the documents that started the entire chain of events, the documents Rebecca was killed trying to expose. And years after the trial ended, that folder was found, hidden in a place nobody expected, inside a location connected to the person investigators believed had nothing left to hide. The final discovery would reveal that the Holloway family secret was even darker than anyone imagined. The folder was discovered almost 4 decades after Rebecca Holloway's death, a collection of papers that everyone believed had vanished forever. The evidence that started the nightmare, the evidence Rebecca was willing to die for, and the evidence that revealed the Holloway family secret was far deeper than anyone first imagined. The discovery happened during the final cleanup of an old storage facility connected to William Holloway's former construction company. The building had been abandoned for years. Dust covered the shelves. Old equipment sat untouched. Records were stacked in forgotten corners. Most people believed there was nothing left inside, but a retired employee named Harold Jenkins remembered something: a locked cabinet. A cabinet William Holloway always kept separate from the normal company files. Harold had never opened it. He said William treated it like something that could destroy him. After receiving permission from investigators, the cabinet was examined. Inside was a brown folder. No label. No date. Just a single handwritten letter attached to the front. Rebecca was right. The investigators immediately knew. This was not another piece of paperwork. This was a missing piece. Inside the folder were dozens of documents: bank transfers, property agreements, fake company names, signatures, and something that shocked even Detective Laura Bennett: a list of names. Not suspects, not criminals. People who had received money from William Holloway's hidden operation: business partners, officials, employees, and family members. The corruption was much larger than anyone believed. William Holloway had not built a secret alone. He had built an entire network, and Rebecca had discovered it. That was why she was dangerous. Not because she knew about one crime, because she knew about everyone involved. The documents explained why so many people protected the secret, why witnesses stayed silent, why records disappeared, why Daniel Cross was forced out of Bellwood. The truth was not hidden because one person wanted it hidden. The truth was hidden because too many people benefited from the lie. But one document inside the folder changed the entire understanding of Rebecca's murder. A handwritten note from William Holloway himself. The note was dated 1975, the same year Daniel disappeared, the same year the corruption began. It contained a warning written directly to Charles. If anything happens to me, protect the family at all costs. For years, investigators believed Charles acted because of greed, because he wanted money, because he wanted power. But the note revealed something more complicated. Charles believed he was protecting his brother's legacy. He believed the Holloway name mattered more than the truth, and that belief destroyed everything. The investigators revisited Charles Holloway's final interview, a statement he made shortly before his arrest. At the time, everyone focused on his denial, but after discovering William's note, detectives looked at his words differently. Charles had said, "I did what I had to do. Not, I didn't do it. Not, I don't know anything." He said he did what he had to do. Those words became one of the most important statements in the case, because they suggested something investigators had suspected from the beginning. Charles never saw himself as a criminal. He saw himself as someone protecting something, even if that meant destroying lives. The trial record showed that Charles never apologized for hiding the truth. He never admitted guilt emotionally. He only admitted one thing: that Rebecca discovered something she was never supposed to find. Years later, Daniel Cross spoke publicly about Rebecca for the first time. He described her not as a victim, but as the person who almost exposed everything. Rebecca was brave, he said. She knew the truth could hurt people. She knew it could destroy her family. But she believed a lie that lasts forever hurts more. Those words became the final message of the case. Because Rebecca's death was not just about a murder. It was about the consequences of silence. The consequences of protecting powerful people. The consequences of choosing reputation over justice. After the case officially closed, Bellwood changed. The old Holloway properties were sold. The family name disappeared from local businesses. The town that once protected the family reputation was forced to confront what happened. People who remembered Rebecca said the same thing. She was always asking questions, always searching, always noticing details others ignored. And that was exactly what made her dangerous to the people hiding the truth. She noticed. She remembered. She refused to look away. The final police report described the case as one of the most complex cold cases in Georgia history, not because investigators lacked evidence, but because the evidence was buried beneath decades of loyalty and fear. The fingerprint, the hidden documents, the recorded message, the family diary, the missing necklace. Every piece existed, but each piece was separated, waiting for someone to connect them. And when they finally connected, the picture was impossible to ignore. A young woman discovered a family secret. She tried to expose it. She was silenced, and the people responsible spent decades believing time would protect them. They were wrong. Because time does not erase the truth. It only delays its arrival. Years after the trial, Detective Laura Bennett returned to the Holloway property one final time. The house was empty. The rooms were quiet. The place where Rebecca spent her final moments looked completely different. No evidence markers. No investigators. No cameras. Just silence. Laura stood in the hallway where the first blood drops had been discovered in 1985. She looked toward the back entrance. The same entrance where someone walked in. Someone Rebecca trusted. Someone who knew her. Someone who believed the secret mattered more than her life. And then Laura noticed something. A small mark carved into the wooden frame. Almost invisible. A message left behind. Nobody knew when it was written. Nobody knew who wrote it. But the words were clear. 3 simple words. Truth survives time. For decades, Rebecca Holloway's story was reduced to a headline. A missing teacher. A murdered woman. An unsolved mystery. But the truth was always more complicated. She was a daughter who challenged her family. A sister who searched for answers. A person who believed doing the right thing mattered. And even though she never saw justice arrive, justice eventually found her. The cold case was cracked. The family's secret was exposed. The unexpected suspect was revealed. And the town of Bellwood finally learned the truth it had avoided for 37 years. But the most haunting part of the case was not who killed Rebecca Holloway. It was how many people knew something was wrong and chose silence. Because sometimes the greatest mystery is not discovering who committed the crime. Sometimes the greatest mystery is discovering how many people were willing to let it remain hidden. And in Georgia, after nearly 4 decades of questions, one forgotten case finally proved something investigators had always believed. No secret stays buried forever. Not when someone is still searching. Not when evidence is still waiting. And not when the truth is determined to be found. The final pages of the investigation file were not filled with new evidence. They were filled with names. Names of people who had been affected by the Holloway family secret. Names of witnesses who carried memories for decades. Names of investigators who retired without ever knowing if Rebecca Holloway would receive justice. Because a cold case is never just a case. It is a wound that remains open. A question that follows people through their entire lives. And in Bellwood, Georgia, the question had followed them for 37 years. Who killed Rebecca Holloway? Why was she silenced? And how could an entire family allow the truth to disappear for so long? After the trial ended, investigators continued reviewing every detail, not because they doubted the verdict, but because they wanted to understand the full picture. They wanted to know how close they came to solving it in 1985. And the answer was disturbing. The evidence had always been there. The problem was that nobody knew how to connect it. The original detectives were not careless. They were working with limited tools, limited technology, and a town where everyone protected the Holloway name. Back then, a family member was considered less suspicious than a stranger. A respected businessman was considered more believable than an unknown witness. A missing man like Daniel Cross was treated as someone who ran away, not someone who was forced away. The investigation had been shaped by assumptions, and assumptions became the strongest wall protecting the truth. Years later, Detective Laura Bennett admitted that the hardest part of reopening the case was accepting that the answers had been hidden in plain sight. The evidence wasn't gone, she said. It was ignored. The most important discovery was not the fingerprint, not the documents, not even the confession from Michael. It was the pattern of people protecting each other, the The pattern of stories changing. The pattern of silence. Because every lie created another clue. Every missing detail pointed somewhere. Every person who said, "I don't know," actually knew something. Rebecca understood that before anyone else. That was what made her dangerous. She saw the pattern. She followed it. And she refused to stop. After the trial, Daniel Cross returned to Bellwood one final time. He had avoided the town for almost 40 years. The streets looked different. The businesses had changed. The people who remembered him were older. Some were gone. But the memories remained. He visited the old Holloway property, the place where his life changed forever, the place where a friendship became a threat, the place where Rebecca spent her final days searching for answers. Standing outside the house, Daniel looked at the windows. For a long time, he said nothing. Then he placed a small envelope near the front door. Inside was the original photograph from 1974, the same photograph that reopened the case. The photograph of a family before the secrets destroyed them. On the back, Daniel had written a message. "For Rebecca, you were right." It was the apology he carried for decades. Because Daniel always believed one thing. If he had stayed, if he had fought harder, if he had gone to police sooner, maybe Rebecca would still be alive. But investigators later explained that Daniel's silence was only one piece of a much larger tragedy. Rebecca was surrounded by people who knew pieces of the truth, people who had chances to act, people who made choices, and those choices created the tragedy. Michael Holloway spent the remaining years of his life away from Bellwood. He rarely spoke publicly. When asked about Rebecca, he always gave the same answer: "I should have done more." But those words could never erase what happened, because Rebecca did not need someone to feel guilty after she was gone. She needed someone to stand beside her when she was alive. The final review of the case revealed one more heartbreaking detail. A letter Rebecca had written to her daughter, a letter never delivered. It was found among her personal belongings. She had started writing it days before her death. The letter was not about fear, not about anger, not about revenge. It was about hope. Rebecca wrote that families were supposed to protect each other. But protection did not mean hiding mistakes. It meant having the courage to admit them. She wrote, "The truth may hurt us for a while, but lies hurt us forever." Those words became the unofficial final message of the case. The Holloway family spent decades protecting a lie, and that lie destroyed everything they were trying to save. The case eventually became part of law enforcement training programs, not because of crime itself, but because of what it taught investigators. Never assume. Never dismiss family members. Never believe time destroys evidence. Because sometimes the smallest forgotten detail can survive longer than the biggest lie. A fingerprint. A photograph. A handwritten note. A hidden recording. One piece at a time, the truth waits. The final headline appeared years after Rebecca's death. A headline nobody believed would ever be written. Georgia 1985 cold case cracked. Buried family secret exposes unexpected suspect. For the people of Bellwood, those words represented more than an arrest. They represented closure. But closure does not mean forgetting. The community still remembered Rebecca Holloway. They remembered the teacher who cared about her students, the woman who asked difficult questions, the person who believed the truth mattered. And they remembered the lesson her case left behind. The most dangerous secrets are not always hidden in abandoned places. Sometimes they are hidden inside families, behind familiar faces, behind respected names, behind people everyone believes they understand. For 37 years, the Holloway family secret survived because everyone believed silence was safer than truth. But silence has a weakness. Eventually, someone speaks. Eventually, someone searches. Eventually, someone opens a forgotten box. And when that happens, the past comes back. The evidence returns. The names are revealed. And the truth finally gets its moment. Rebecca Holloway never got to see the world learn what happened to her. She never saw the arrests. She never heard the verdict. She never knew that the secret she uncovered would eventually destroy the people who buried them. But her final act mattered, because she refused to let a lie become history. She left behind questions. She left behind evidence. And she left behind a message that survived longer than anyone expected. The truth does not disappear. It waits. It waits inside forgotten files, inside old photographs, inside memories people try to suppress. And sometimes, it waits inside the very family that tried hardest to hide it. The Georgia cold case that haunted Bellwood for nearly 4 decades was finally solved. But the story of Rebecca Holloway remained. A reminder that every mystery has a voice, every victim has a story, and every secret, no matter how carefully buried, eventually finds its way back to the surface. Years after the verdicts, the name Rebecca Holloway continued to appear whenever investigators discussed the most unusual cold cases in Georgia. Not because the crime was the oldest, not because the investigation was the largest, but because of what it revealed. A murder does not always begin on the night someone dies. Sometimes it begins years earlier, with one decision, one secret, one moment when someone chooses to protect the wrong thing. For Rebecca, that moment began long before she discovered the hidden documents, long before she contacted Daniel Cross, long before she walked into the final confrontation that ended her life. It began when she realized the people closest to her had built an entire world around a lie that became more important than family, more important than loyalty, more important than the truth. After the case was officially closed, investigators continued analyzing the evidence. They wanted to understand something that had bothered them from the beginning. Why did Rebecca continue searching even when she knew the danger? Why did she not walk away? Why did she keep pushing when everyone around her told her to stop? The answer was found in another journal entry, a page Rebecca had written months before her death. She described growing up in the Holloway family, a family everyone admired from the outside. But inside the house, things were different. She wrote about her father's obsession with reputation, about the pressure to appear perfect, about the unwritten rule that problems stayed inside the family, never discussed, never questioned, never exposed. Rebecca wrote that she spent years believing this was normal, until she realized something. A family that hides every mistake eventually forgets the difference between protecting people and protecting secrets. That realization changed her, and it changed the investigation. Because Rebecca was not searching for revenge. She was searching for the truth about the people she loved. That was the part that made the case so tragic. She was not trying to destroy her family. She was trying to save what was left of it. But Charles Holloway saw the truth as a threat. Michael Holloway saw it as something too dangerous to face. And William Holloway had spent years creating a system where fear controlled everyone around him. Even after his death, the influence remained. The investigation also revealed something disturbing about the days before Rebecca's murder. Someone had been watching her. Someone had been following her movements. Neighbors remembered seeing the same vehicle near her home several times. A dark-colored sedan parked across the street, engine running, lights off, waiting. At the time, nobody thought much of it. In a quiet neighborhood, unfamiliar cars were not unusual. But years later, investigators connected the sightings. The vehicle belonged to someone connected to the Holloway family business, a man named Thomas Reed, a former accountant who worked closely with William Holloway. During the original investigation, Thomas claimed he knew nothing about the financial records, nothing about Daniel Cross, nothing about Rebecca's research. But the recovered documents proved otherwise. His signature appeared on several transactions. His initials appeared beside missing funds. He was part of the system. And for years he stayed silent. Investigators questioned Thomas after the trial. At first, he denied everything. Then he admitted he knew William was hiding money. Then he admitted Charles knew. Then he admitted something even more disturbing. The night before Rebecca died, Charles contacted several people connected to the old business. Not for a meeting, for a warning. Charles told them Rebecca had discovered the records. He told them the family was in danger, but nobody reported it. Nobody called police. Nobody tried to protect Rebecca. They protected themselves. That revelation changed how the community viewed the case. Because the tragedy was no longer just about one person committing a crime. It was about an entire group of people allowing the truth to disappear. The question was no longer, who knew? The question became, who chose silence? Years later, a memorial was placed near Bellwood Elementary School where Rebecca worked. A simple stone, a simple message. For those who seek the truth, even when it is difficult. Former students attended the ceremony. Many were adults by then. Some brought photographs. Some brought letters. Some brought memories of a teacher who had influenced their lives. Most of them never knew about the secrets surrounding Rebecca's death. They only remembered her kindness, her patience, her belief that every person deserved to be heard. That was the version of Rebecca that survived, not the victim, not the headline, not the name attached to a cold case, a person, a mother, a teacher, a woman who believed the truth mattered. The final chapter of the investigation came years later when the remaining evidence was archived permanently. The case file was closed. The photographs were stored. The recordings were preserved. The names were recorded. But one item remained separated from the official evidence. Rebecca's final notebook. The same notebook that started everything. Inside the back cover, investigators found something they had never noticed. A small piece of paper folded carefully. No date. No signature. Only one sentence. If something happens to me, look at the people who tell you not to look. For detectives, the message represented everything about the case. Rebecca understood. She knew the people around her would try to redirect attention. She knew they would create distractions. She knew they would make the truth seem impossible. So she left behind a final clue. Not a name. Not an accusation. A warning. Look at the people who tell you not to look. For 37 years, everyone searched for a hidden killer. But Rebecca had already pointed toward the real danger. The people protecting the secret. The people insisting there was no secret. The people who wanted everyone to stop asking questions. And eventually, those questions became impossible to silence. The Georgia cold case was solved. The forgotten evidence was found. The unexpected suspect was exposed. But the shadow of Rebecca Holloway's story remained. Because the most haunting part was not the discovery of the truth. It was realizing how close everyone came to losing it forever. A missing letter. A forgotten fingerprint. A hidden journal. A family's secret buried beneath decades of silence. Any one of those pieces could have disappeared. But they survived, waiting for the moment when someone was willing to search again. And that became the final lesson of the Holloway case. Time does not erase what happened. Time only hides it. Until someone decides to uncover it. Until someone asks the question everyone avoided. Until someone refuses to accept the silence. And in Bellwood, Georgia, after nearly 4 decades of darkness, Rebecca Holloway's voice was finally heard. The years after the investigation, and it brought something that no courtroom could provide. Understanding. Because a verdict could identify responsibility. A sentence could punish the guilty. But it could never fully explain the damage left behind. For the people of Bellwood, Rebecca Holloway's death was no longer just a solved murder. It was a reminder. A reminder that the most dangerous secrets are not always hidden in dark places. Sometimes they exist in ordinary homes, behind familiar doors, inside families that appear perfect from the outside. And the Holloway family had spent decades building that image. A successful family, a respected name, a legacy. But underneath it all was a history of fear, corruption, and silence. The final investigation report described Rebecca as the person who broke the pattern. The person who interrupted decades' protection. Because before Rebecca began asking questions, the Holloway secret survived because everyone followed the same rule. Do not talk. Do not investigate. Do not challenge the family. That rule protected William Holloway while he was alive. It protected Charles after his death. and it protected Michael when the truth became impossible to ignore. But Rebecca did not follow the rule. She questioned. She searched. She recorded. She preserved evidence. And because of that, the secret eventually collapsed. After the trial, investigators returned to Daniel Cross one final time. They wanted to understand why he stayed silent for so long, why he waited decades before telling his story. Daniel admitted he lived every day with regret, not because he had committed the crime, but because he believed he failed Rebecca. He remembered the last conversation they had. He remembered her voice, the uncertainty, the fear, but also the determination. Rebecca knew something terrible was coming, yet she still believed the truth was worth the risk. Daniel told investigators that was always who Rebecca was. She was a person who defended people who had no voice, the person who challenged unfairness, the person who believed doing nothing was the same as accepting the problem, and that belief eventually led her directly into danger. The final analysis of Rebecca's case revealed another painful detail. She had several opportunities to leave. She could have moved away. She could have handed the evidence to someone else. She could have walked away from the Holloway name forever, but she chose not to because she believed the people she loved deserved the chance to tell the truth. She believed her family could still choose the right thing. That was a tragedy. Rebecca believed there was still something worth saving, but the people around her had already chosen silence. The investigators later reconstructed the final hours of Rebecca's life. The evening began normally. She returned home after work. She answered phone calls. She organized documents. She prepared notes. She believed she was close to exposing everything. Then someone she knew arrived. Someone she trusted. Someone who did not need to force their way inside. Someone who knew exactly how to approach her. That detail remained one of the most chilling parts of the case. Rebecca was not defeated by a stranger. She was defeated by someone who knew her, someone who understood her, someone who knew exactly what she was trying to do, and that person used that trust against her. The final evidence showed that Rebecca's last act was not fear. It was preparation. She left behind clues. She protected documents. She recorded information. She created a trail that would eventually lead investigators back to the truth. Even after death, Rebecca continued the investigation she started. The case became a symbol among detectives who worked on cold cases, not because it was impossible, but because it demonstrated something important. Cold cases are often not solved by one dramatic discovery. They are solved piece by piece. One forgotten detail, one overlooked statement, one piece of evidence that suddenly makes sense. The fingerprint alone did not solve the case. The letter alone did not solve the case. The journal alone did not solve the case. But together, they created a picture that could no longer be ignored. A picture of a family's secret hidden for decades. A picture of a woman who refused to stop searching. A picture of people who believed time would protect them. They were wrong. The final days of Charles Holloway's life were spent in prison. He never publicly admitted the full truth. He maintained that he acted because he was protecting his family. But investigators believe that statement revealed the real problem. Charles was not protecting his family. He was protecting the version of the family he wanted the world to believe. A version built on lies. A version that collapsed the moment Rebecca exposed the truth. Michael Holloway spent his remaining years carrying the weight of his decisions. People in Bellwood often debated whether he was a victim or a participant. The answer was complicated. He was afraid. But he was also silent. He was threatened. But he also benefited. He lost his sister. But he also helped protect the people responsible. The case showed that sometimes responsibility does not exist in only one place. Sometimes it spreads. Sometimes it grows through every person who chooses silence. And that was the darkest lesson from Rebecca Holloway's story. The murder lasted minutes. The cover-up lasted decades. The violence ended quickly. The damage continued for generations. Years later, a documentary about the case interviewed former residents of Bellwood. Many admitted something they had never said before. They had heard rumors. They had noticed strange behavior. They had seen people avoid certain questions, but they ignored it. Because questioning a respected family felt uncomfortable. Because believing something terrible was easier when it remained unspoken. And that was how secrets survive. Not because nobody knows, but because nobody wants to be the first person to say it out loud. Rebecca was the first, and it cost her everything. The final image associated with the case became a simple one. A photograph of Rebecca standing outside Bellwood Elementary School, smiling, holding a stack of papers, completely unaware of the battle waiting ahead. To most people, it looked like an ordinary photograph, but investigators saw something else. They saw the person who would eventually bring down a decades-old lie. They saw the beginning of a story that would take almost 40 years to finish. And they saw proof of something that every cold case investigator knows. The truth may disappear for a while. It may be ignored. It may be buried. But it leaves traces, a fingerprint, a letter, a memory, a voice on a forgotten recording. And eventually, someone finds them. Someone connects them. Someone opens a door that others tried to keep closed. And when that happens, the past returns. Not quietly, not gently, but all at once. The Georgia 1985 cold case was finally cracked. The family's secret was exposed. The unexpected suspect was revealed. And Rebecca Holloway's final message survived longer than anyone who tried to silence her. Because in the end, the truth did exactly what she believed it would do. It survived time. The story of Rebecca Holloway did not end when the courtroom doors closed. Because some cases do not disappear after a verdict. They remain. They stay with the investigators who worked them. They stay with the families who lost someone. They stay with communities that must eventually confront the truth they spent years avoiding. The town that once celebrated the family name began questioning everything it thought it knew. Old conversations were remembered differently. Old warnings suddenly made sense. Small details people ignored decades earlier became impossible to dismiss. A neighbor remembered how William Holloway always controlled every conversation. A former employee remembered how Charles never asked questions about the business. A childhood friend remembered Rebecca saying that something about her family didn't add up. At the time, those moments seemed meaningless. After the investigation, they became pieces of a much larger picture, because that was the terrifying reality of the case. The truth was never completely hidden. It was scattered, waiting for someone to collect it. The investigators who reopened the file understood that immediately. Cold cases are often described as mysteries, but the truth is more complicated. A mystery suggests the answer is somewhere unknown. A cold case is different. The answer may already exist. It may be sitting inside a box, inside a photograph, inside a statement nobody believed mattered. The challenge is finding it before it disappears forever. And in Rebecca Holloway's case, time almost won. The original evidence was aging. Records were damaged. Witnesses were getting older. Memories were fading. Some people connected to the case died before they could ever be questioned. But Rebecca had done something that saved the investigation. She left a trail. Every note she wrote, every call she made, every document she collected, every question she asked. She created a map leading back to the truth. Detective Laura Bennett later described Rebecca's actions as the reason the case survived. She was investigating her own disappearance before anyone knew she would need to. Those words became one of the most powerful descriptions of the case, because Rebecca understood something others did not. She knew the people around her had reasons to stay silent. She knew the family name was more important to some people than justice. So she prepared. She documented. She protected the evidence. And decades later, those choices gave investigators the ability to finish what she started. The final review of Rebecca's personal files revealed another hidden detail. A calendar from 1985. At first glance, it looked ordinary. Work meetings, school events, family appointments. But several dates had small marks beside them. A circle, a line, A symbol Rebecca used only once before. Investigators compared those markings with her journal entries. They discovered she had created a private timeline, a timeline showing every suspicious event leading up to her death. The first entry was the day she discovered her father's old financial records. The second was the day she found Daniel Cross's name. The third was the day she realized Charles knew about everything. The final marked date was October 17, 1985, the night Rebecca died. Beside that date, there was only one word. Enough. Investigators believed Rebecca planned to confront the family. Not run. Not hide. Confront. She believed the truth had reached a point where silence was no longer possible. And that decision placed her directly against the people who had spent decades protecting the secret. After the case was solved, Rebecca's daughter spoke publicly for the first time. She had spent years knowing only fragments. A mother who died too young. A family that avoided certain conversations. A past filled with unanswered questions. She said the hardest part was not learning who was responsible. It was learning how many people knew something was wrong. She explained that children often inherit more than names. They inherit stories. They inherit fears. They inherit the things adults refuse to say. And for decades, the Holloway family passed down silence. But eventually, silence became impossible to maintain. The case also changed how local law enforcement approached old investigations. The Bellwood Sheriff's Office created a new review process for unsolved cases. Old evidence was re-examined. Archive files were digitized. Forgotten reports were brought back into consideration. Because Rebecca's case proved one thing. A file can go cold. But evidence does not stop waiting. The most important breakthrough had not come from a new witness. It had not come from a dramatic confession. It came from someone deciding to look again. That decision reopened a door everyone believed was permanently closed. And behind that door was everything the Holloway family tried to bury. The money, the lies, the missing records, the hidden relationships, the final truth. Years after the investigation ended, a reporter returned to Bellwood to revisit the case. The question asked the residents was simple. Do you believe justice came too late? The answers were different. Some said yes. No punishment could return Rebecca. No verdict could undo decades of pain. Others said justice does not have an expiration date. They believed Rebecca deserved the world to know what happened, and they believed the truth mattered, even after all those years. Perhaps the most haunting part of the case was that Rebecca was only 32 years old when she died. She had spent her life helping others, teaching children, supporting friends, building a future. But in the final months of her life, she became something else, an investigator, a person chasing answers nobody wanted found. She followed a trail that led directly into her own family, and she discovered something many people never want to accept. Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones capable of hiding the deepest secrets. The Holloway case became a warning, not about strangers, not about unknown enemies, but about appearances. Because everything looked normal. The family, the home, the reputation, the history. Everything looked safe until someone looked closer, until Rebecca looked closer. And once she saw the truth, she could never unsee it. The cold case that haunted Georgia for decades was finally solved. But the mystery that remained was more painful. How many people could have stopped it? How many chances were missed? How many times did someone choose silence when they could have chosen courage? Those questions remained long after the arrests. Because some mysteries are not about discovering what happened. And in Bellwood, Georgia, the answer was found buried beneath decades of fear. A family protected a secret. A woman exposed it. And time eventually revealed everything. The final evidence box was sealed and placed into the archives. The case number was marked closed. The investigation was complete. But inside the file was one final photograph. Rebecca Holloway, standing outside the school where she taught, smiling, holding papers in her hands. A person who believed every story deserved to be told. Even hers. Especially hers. And beneath the photograph, investigators place a note, not from the police, not from the court, from the people who finally understood what Rebecca had been trying to say all along. The truth was never missing. It was waiting